First of all, one of the things that excites me the most about great quant-backed market insights is that it actually allows us to be more creative. Because I'm in AI, in marketing, I hear a lot about AI slop. I hear a lot about the race to the bottom. I hear a lot about, volume over quality. And I really believe that when you can walk into a boardroom with results from a live market experiment that showed that this bold idea I have that makes everybody uncomfortable spoke to our customers more deeply, more cleanly, more profoundly, and gave us a 44% uplift on this boring crap we've been putting out for 12 months. I really believe the great market insights that everybody can believe and understand. And it is the joy about what we do is how deeply quant-backed these insights are.
Hi, welcome back to SaaS Half Full, the only show serving B2B SaaS marketers. I'm Lindsay Groper, EVP at PanBlast. I will be both your host and bartender today. I had a great conversation with Kate O'Keefe, who is the CEO and founder of Heatseeker. And today we're talking about rethinking your market research strategies in the AI-driven era, including leveraging something called synthetic personas, where you are talking with and learning from AI personas. So if you care to, grab a drink and join me as I speak with Kate. Hi, Kate. Welcome to SaaS Half Full.
Hi, Lindsay. Wildly excited to be here.
I am excited for you to join us, and I'm also super impressed because although you're typically seated in the Bay Area, you are in Australia currently, so it is bright and early for you at 6 a.m.
I'm fresh as a daisy.
And not only is it super early for you to be having a podcast interview, but she is sticking true to the SaaS Half Full process, people. She is joining me for a drink at 6 a.m. She's visiting her family. They're probably questioning what's going on with her life right now. But you went and got yourself a glass of champagne, Kate, and I really appreciate it. Cheers. Thanks for joining me. For those of you listening audio only, I just have a glass of red wine today. It's 2 o'clock on a Thursday. It's like acceptable. So today we are going to talk about how marketers should be rethinking market research, specifically in the AI era. It's actually not a topic that we have tackled in quite some time. It's been a couple of years, so a lot has changed since we've talked about this topic. But before we do, Kate, I want to talk a little bit about you, how you got into founding Heatseeker, kind of what your world was like before that. And then also we do want the quick and dirty on what Heatseeker is, why y'all exist. So why don't you hit us with a little bit about you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm wildly excited to be here. And anybody who has deep respect for day drinking is a friend of mine. I had a consumer brand in my 20s. I spent all of my 30s here in the Bay Area working for Cisco, a very high-tech, deep-tech company. During my time there, I was in heads of innovation roles. So I was creating products, shipping products, creating startups, spinning them out of the behemoth that is Cisco. And then I took a role after Cisco in BCG. So I was in their digital ventures business, creating digital attacker brands for big companies. So by accident or on purpose, I've gone through the motions of creating a brand from scratch many, many, many times now. And I think the funny thing about this space, I think it really dawned on me when I was in a big strategy consulting firm where I didn't really belong, but, went along for the ride, that the craft of financials, the craft of performance, of quality, of risk, these are all supported by amazing tooling and amazing versions of the truth. And the more time I spent creating brands, the more it occurred to me that the poor marketing team, we don't have a beautiful general ledger of the truth. A CFO never had to walk into a board meeting and say, well, look, I asked 30 people and they think we're solvent, so I got this. But marketers, it often really is very hard for us to get a read of the truth. We know that the tooling we've had to use in the past to get to customer pain points, customer jobs to be done, things like surveys and interviews, people chasing gift cards, bots chasing gift cards. And we always have to wait. No one else in a business needs to wait on the truth, but we do as marketers. And so that was really my ambition in creating Heatseeker. I want to give marketers the truth they need, the truth they can action. And I want them to have it LRN, like right now. Like I want you to have it while you're arguing with a colleague in the meeting. And, when you need it, if somebody asks you a question about what a customer wants that wasn't in the survey, quote unquote, I want you to be able to answer that question like right there in the moment. And so I think it's about time marketers got the same tools everybody else had in terms of quality in real time.
Okay. Love that. And in terms of who you serve at Heatseeker, who are some of your customers? I do understand that you also just had like a major customer win, like game changing awarding of a customer. So talk to us about who you serve and like who's Heatseeker work the best for?
Yeah, so Heatseeker works the best with mid to large size brands. We serve the marketing team. We're usually brought in by the CMO because it's usually a pretty seismic change. How we make decisions around here is usually something that's driven by a CMO or a head of brand, sometimes a head of digital marketing, but tends to be sort of a cross-marketing capability. At the moment, we're serving large consumer brands. So we're serving DoorDash, Uber. You mentioned, a major customer win for us recently. We just brought on L'Oreal as a customer. They did a search in the AI world. They did a search across the world from 50 startups, and they've chosen Heatseeker because of our really unique use of AI and the alignment. L'Oreal is famous for being tech forward, super customer focused. And of course that fits our remit super nicely. So that's who we serve.
Well, I think that's certainly deserving of a 6 a.m. campaign post.
Yeah.
That's incredible. All right. So let's dive in. You mentioned having a single source of truth, getting it LRN, like right now. I do subscribe to the idea also that marketers tend to overthink things like original research and market research. But let's just start with where you see the biggest disconnect between how companies think they should be doing research and what they actually could or should be doing based on how technology has changed today.
Yeah. That's a great point. I think one of the biggest unlocks with the current technology is our ability to shift to a purely behavioral form of signal and clarity about what's going on. So behavioral as opposed to surveys, interviews, these are quite sort of speculative. Would you buy this? Oh, I'm going to speculate that, I probably would. So we want to move away from that kind of noise. And the reason we need to move away from it is that there's only about a 20-30% correlation between someone saying, I intend to buy this in a survey and whether or not they actually do. I mean, that's disastrous. And that's the kind of signal that sinks great careers, sinks great products, kills great campaigns when we're working with the wrong insight. And so, yeah, right now, the move that we're seeing across the sector is towards a more signal-based, behavioral-based. And how can we give you, that information? And the beauty about real behavioral signal, it's likely to be real time. So there's two ways that you can get that signal currently. One way is through your own first-party data. And that's the holy grail. And pretty much, every great marketer here right now is working out ways to get their hands on great first-party data, to be able to use their own performance marketing data better, pull it out of Meta, make it available within the business, add customer calls, add support tickets, add your loyalty information. And hey, presto, we've got amazing signal about which personas are responding to which product and offers in real time. However, there's a limitation, of course, with your first party data. Your first party data is not exploratory. It doesn't allow you to explore products you're not currently selling or ideas that you just had in the shower this morning. So a first party data only system of signal of customer insight is not going to get you where you need to go. And that's where we like to come in. So Heatseeker does take that first party data. We do like to use all of that first party data to support you. And we top that up with live market experiments that we run, that our AI tool runs for you. So we can take pretty much any growth question that you have. Here's a new feature or benefit in my product, or should I emphasize this gift with purchase or that gift with purchase? And we run live market experiments. And the way we do that is our AI tool crafts panels of ads that are published live, usually on Meta, on Instagram or Facebook. We have other platforms, but we see how those ads perform in the real world. And this is how we can be speculative, but still behavioral, because it's real people responding to real ads, leaving their email address or clicking through to buy through those ads. And we use that to sort of, expand the surface area of where you can pull behavioral signal from. So yes, you can pull it from your first party data. And now you can also pull it from the broader universe of what might be possible for marketers. And so we bring that together. We have an engine that pulls small pieces of signal or conflicting signal from your first party data, top it up with an experiment. And the way we make that available to marketers is they can just talk to a synthetic persona of their persona type. So if you have 4 or 5 different personas that your company sells to, you can just talk to those customers, or you can chat to them and put them to work. They can draft the next agency brief for the campaign that's targeting them, with all of the information and live market tests about what will make that brief work and what will make that campaign come to life.
Okay, so a couple questions off of that. Certainly, like dynamic ad creative, A/B testing, that's not new. That's been done for a while. Mixing that with first party data, also having been done. But this idea of a synthetic persona, I want to dive into that more, because most people, including me, just assumes that is something that AI has made up. How can you explain, at a practical level, what that is and what makes those synthetic personas credible if we're trying to get out of this more speculative nature of market research?
Yeah, so exactly right. So the user experience is that they bring up their personas. A lot of our customers just leave them on all day long, and ask them any question. Would you prefer this or that? Here's some copy. Can you rewrite this for me? Targeted towards you. And you're right about the trust or the provenance of the data that supports what they're telling us is the competitive advantage and is the most important part of that. It's not enough that you get your copy rewritten. What you need is also need the exact verbatims from the customer interviews or the customer calls. You need the live market experiment results. This was a 41% uplift over this other benefit that we've emphasized before. So for us, it's not just the talking to them. It's that while they're talking, they're sharing the provenance of what they're telling you. And I guess that's the huge difference between what we do in, say, ChatGPT. ChatGPT is great. It's instant, it's free, but of course it's untrained. And even when it is trained, we know that it hallucinates. We also know it's very hard to tweak or double down on individual statements, within, say, a broader agency brief. So that's really what we've created this for, is the ability for you to co-create with a statistically significant cohort of your customers, synthesized version of your customers, so that you can really respond to them and build with them.
Okay. So it sounds like you're saying the synthetic persona shouldn't necessarily replace traditional market research. It's there to augment. And where do you see still the human-led insights having the most impact within that sort of market research continuum?
Yeah. So look, I remain a huge fan and a total nerd about high quality ethnography. I will always love the ability to have a human in the room, ask the 5 whys, get to the heart of the matter, spend time belly to belly with a customer, going about their day, so I can identify the human frictions that they're responding to, that they're driving to and struggling with. So I will always love that kind of research. And I don't find high quality ethnography speculative at all. I think people talking about their lived experience is still a form of amazing research. So I'm a huge fan of that work. And those sorts of interviews are some of the best data that we ingest as part of the creation of these personas. What we don't like to do is ingest enormous amounts of surveys where the TAM for that survey has been responding for a gift card or, some sort of incentive. I mean, those sorts of, speculative preferences. Yes, I prefer this or that. We feel, really corrupts, the deeper meaning or insight that we could get. So we're absolute fangirls of this idea of let's be behavioral only. But let's just get what's either real behavior, e.g. from the first party data, or what we can interrogate through an experiment and see the real behavior. I mean, you mentioned that sort of A/B testing, multivariate testing isn't new, which is great, which is why we use it as a technique. But where we often don't see it is being used for things like customer pain points or jobs to be done, validate different ways of value propositioning this particular feature or benefit. And so I'd love to share for folks, even that aren't customers of Heatseeker, is if you've got a great A/B testing stack, bring it up in the life cycle of what you're doing. Start much earlier and use it to really hone in on your personas. Like when you build out your own customer personas, most of us have had, an agency at some point or internally, we've crafted some personas that we use and love. And being able to use that A/B testing protocol much earlier, not for testing creative, but for testing what are the most important problems that people are responding to. And we use the same technique as you would any other A/B test. The headline of the ad, becomes, the pain point. If you're selling a home loan, it's, want to escape the bank of mom and dad, or it's, get out of renting, or it's, finding a first home that you want to take your baby to, right? So this is how we use the same technique to interrogate deeper human needs than just, creative testing at the end of the process.
Please tell me that your synthetic personas have classic alliteration names, like price conscious Paul and analytical. Do they, please? Because that's one of my favorite things. I never want anyone to let go.
Yeah.
Why we feel we need to do that.
Yes.
It's always an alliteration.
Yeah, they absolutely still do. And a lot of them will have, some of them, depending on what they're trained on, they'll have the same attitude, the same sass. I have one customer who gave us a lot of customer complaint calls. So their personas, can feel kind of sad, like when we start asking them about some of those zones. And if their product is really material to people, enjoying their lives. We love to say that we take the verbatims from your customer interviews or your calls and we put them in the mouths of your personas so that you can really hear from them. And they don't sound like AI, they sound like your real customers. And so, yeah, like if your customers are grumpy with you, you're going to hear about it through the personas. Yeah. They've got some sass. They've got some attitude, Lindsay.
Yeah. One of the great promises of not just AI-driven market research, I mean, certainly AI-driven anything is speed, which can be great, but also on the flip side of it can derail speed for quality.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned ChatGPT or Claude or whatever LLM you use. We've definitely all experienced that it lies. It is wrong. And my favorite is when I literally say like, hey, this is wrong. You're like, my bad. You're right. Thanks for calling me out. I'm like, I love the accountability. That's more than like some humans I know, right? Like really quick to be like, you're right. I have literally no source to back up what I just told you. It's like super. So I guess what checks and balances do you have in place just to like check quality? Is there, are there things that you have to put in place to ensure that there aren't things like bias or incorrect information? Sort of what rules do you have in place for that?
Yeah. So I want to talk about quality on two fronts. Like, first of all, one of the things that excites me the most about great quant-backed market insights is that it actually allows us to be more creative. because I'm in AI, in marketing, I hear a lot about AI slop. I hear a lot about the race to the bottom. I hear a lot about, volume over quality. And I really believe that when you can walk into a boardroom with results from a live market experiment that showed that this bold idea I have that makes everybody uncomfortable spoke to our customers more deeply, more cleanly, more profoundly, and gave us a 44% uplift on this boring crap we've been putting out for 12 months. I really believe the great market insights that everybody can believe and understand. And it is the joy about what we do is how deeply quant-backed these insights are. When we run a live market experiment, 300,000 people see the study, and they're all real people scrolling through their feed, responding to a variant in the experiment. So there's no opinion. You can't argue that that's an amazing signal that we should be taking on board. And so this is the real secret weapon. And that's what marketers need. They don't just need like the right answer for the campaign. They need to be able to take their organizations with them, especially when they're pushing big, bold, and risky ideas. So I'm doing this for them. What do the risk takers need? You know what they need? They need quant-backed data. They need great verbatims from customer calls that I found from a call from 9 months ago. They need that kind of data in order to bring their company with them, their agency with them, and they need to be able to share the provenance of where that information and boldness has come from. So I want to start there about the role of super high quality quant-backed insights in bigger, bolder creatives, which is what we all want in marketing. None of us got into this game, because we wanted to ship like an AI generated image with a price next to it, right? Like that's not why we're here. We're here to swing for the fences, and I want to help people to do that. So that's the first piece. I think the second piece, in your question about quality, like how do we know, how can we be sure? This is at the heart of, of what we're delivering. Like for the first time, you can have a live conversation with a customer, and like while they're talking, how representative what they're sharing is of the whole is being shared and where it's come from. So that's super exciting. And then every time you run a live market experiment on Heatseeker, most of our customers will run somewhere between 2 and 6 new live market experiments a month. We run a synthetic experiment at the same time, and we see how closely correlated they are. And so our customers own that. They're like, oh, my correlation of my synthetics has slipped a point or two. I'm going to run a couple of extra experiments, and bang, they go out into the marketplace. Super tiny media spend is all that's required for the overall correlation to real world answers to go back up. So this is how it's rather than ChatGPT or Claude, you got no idea what the correlation is to the real world is.
Right.
It's a black box. And so let's make it so it's not a black box.
Can you put a bow around all of this and walk us through a specific use case of, I guess it could be, you don't have to like name the customer, but because it sounds like you're coming in with most of your clients and really upending their whole mindset about market research. But you mentioned the real world testing versus, then running synthetic congruently. Can you just give us like a real world use case or when this was deployed? Again, you don't have to necessarily use the brand name, but even if you say, pet food company and cat food A versus cat food B.
One of my favorite examples of where this is really magic is with brand partnerships. The thing about a brand partnership between two big brands is that the customer is completely new. And these are not our actual customers, but it's a bit of a comp to some folks that we've worked with before. Like if you took like an Instacart and like a sports basement as an example, now the Instacart customer is looking to buy groceries, quick, convenient, thinking about like what's local to them. And of course, sports basement is all about, those who are looking for affordable sporting equipment. And so that's a really good example where if there was that partnership, was to be created, who would be that customer? Who is the customer that wants, the bargain at Sports Basement, but I don't like the car park, so I want someone to bring it to me? Who is that customer? And how do we understand them really, really quickly? And so that's an example where our techniques can be incredibly effective. We can run a stack of experiments, takes 4 or 5 days. We can pull in some first party data, and all of a sudden you have a statistically significant cohort of data to pull from, and you can talk to that customer. If it's a brand new partnership, you've got agencies to brief, you've got an enormous amount of marketing to create, you got websites to structure. Everything has to be done super, super fast. But most of the time, you won't know who that customer is until you're live. And so before going live, we can help you test. We can help you test under stealth brands, and we can bring in the kind of first party data that will give you an amazing body of information to pull from, so that you can have that customer co-create with you, write your website copy, tell you why it is that they're buying this thing, so that you can hit them right the first time.
And ultimately from that, you're coming out with these synthetic personas that they didn't know necessarily existed or didn't know that they should be marketing to. Yeah. I'm thinking, like last minute Linda, who is the busy mom of sports kids who is going to Atlanta for a week-long sports tournament and doesn't want to take all of their shit with them. And maybe they're going to Instacart a water bottle, Gatorade packets, and all the stuff to their hotel so that they don't have to pack it or take it on the plane, have it in their car. And that's a persona that neither of them would have likely marketed to previously.
Exactly right. As you know, last minute Linda, who is a sports mom and whose kids are in lacrosse or hockey, is not the same person being marketed to, the same sleepy new mom at home with her kids that doesn't want to leave and wants to use Instacart. It's not the same customer.
Right. And by the way, that's me. I'm last minute Linda. And I 100% have Instacarted and DoorDashed.
Yeah.
Sports related stuff to travel tournaments because I just can't, it's too much to think about packing. So instead I'm I'm just going to have it at the hotel when I get there.
Yeah.
So that is me for that one. If that partnership exists, I am the target.
You're here for it. You're the target.
Yeah, I am the target. What is the biggest objection that you have to overcome? You're selling into large enterprise, it sounds like. And it's interesting because while there are so many demands from boards and from the C-suite to implement AI at every turn, this idea of synthetic personas or coming to the table with it's real market research, but we're not talking to real people. What's the biggest pushback, if any, around this approach to using AI-driven market research? What's the biggest hurdle that you have to overcome, maybe with a skeptical CMO or some other member of the C-suite?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, most of the time when I meet marketers, the response is, thank God you're here. Where the hell have you been? How we have to make these decisions right now and the amount of guessing that we have to do. And we don't have the tooling. It's not here. The technology isn't here for us to craft an entire dialed in campaign to last minute Linda, ahead of time for this brand new partnership. Usually stuff comes down and I'm in the moment, I've got to speak to this perfect customer that we've never met or spoken to before. And the tooling that I have, I'll put out a quick survey, 48-hour survey for a couple of gift cards. It's horrifying, how these decisions are currently made. So yeah, I mean, most of the response, when we meet with people is thank God we're here. One of the differences about what we're offering here is that yes, it's AI and yes, it's synthetic, but it's based on huge amounts of quant data. And the experiments mean that it's a kind of data that people haven't been able to get quickly, easily before. And in a way that doesn't, give any risk to the brand. So I think some of the funnier kind of, resistances that come up, Lindsay, is when people are talking to the personas themselves. I can always tell the marketers versus the executives. The marketers are like, okay, great. I've got an ad next week. I've got to do this campaign. And here are the three things that I need. Write me the brief. Marketers are busy. They're in the hurry and they're outcome oriented. And so their conversations with the personas are very much, nice to meet you. I'm putting you to work. when I introduce the personas to like an executive, or a board, it's always like, what did you watch on TV in the 90s? Like, what's your favorite song?
Right.
So, and those are great. If we've got that data available to you, great.
Right.
And the nice thing about Heatseeker is that we'll always say, I don't have that information. But I always giggle when I'm looking through like Amplitude and I can see what questions of people putting, who's going to win the World Cup next year? I mean, come on, man,
Right. Not colors. Yeah. And you're in a good position to, I mean, obviously selling to marketers, because marketers always get it. It's when, they have to sell food chain. But also, I mean, if what you're saying is true, is that the standard way of doing market research is giving a false sense of confidence, a false sense of security. And this is putting additional layer on top of that to provide real data. So it's like they were, already getting, swindled before with current strategy. So this,
it's this bizarre dance, Lindsay, because it's like the CFO won't give me the money unless I give him a quant, they're very quanty, unless I give them a quant stat on how many people will buy it. And it's like, shit, if I don't give them the survey answer, I won't get any budget. I won't get what I need. Sure, I put the survey out, 71% of people will buy it. And then I do the thing and it doesn't work because I did have shaky data. Mm-hmm. And then it looks like my fault. The survey said that everyone would buy this. And even though so much of that is not marketing's fault, there it is. You said that it would work. It didn't work. It must be the work that you've done or the agency has done. And so like, it's that kind of tension, that I'm looking to break. Right. First of all, like the original statistic, here's the jobs to be done that people care about. Here's the human frictions people care about. We put 5 versions of this into the market and this is how many chose it. Like that kind of signal is the kind of signal that marketers really need. Whether they're accessing Heatseeker through a synthetic persona or through a chat, or, they're getting that data through like overusing their multivariate A/B testing tool. I don't care. As long as they're able to have that kind of behavioral information at their fingertips. So at least they're not taking responsibility for mistakes that are not their fault.
Okay, this has been a great conversation. Is there anything that we didn't tackle about this topic that you want to make sure that we cover?
I think it's kind of amazing how culture within teams changes when we have a representation of the customer perspective that we can all trust. Like we don't have to argue so much anymore. We don't have to pitch each other so much anymore. We don't have to riff and spec. We don't make as many mistakes. And I think that's what's exciting in some of the brands that we've seen that are deploying this technology. It's like, what are you going to do with the rest of that time? And also, getting back to what I mentioned before, like when we can be really, really confident in what the performance is likely to be, we can really swing for the fences, put forward bolder creative, do bolder things, have more influence within our organizations, have more influence at the board level, have more influence with product. You need to change the product because we can see really clearly that it's not going to be responded to. I think giving marketers those tools is so important.
Awesome. Okay, I end every episode the same way, which is I ask if our guests have a signature or favorite toast to send us out.
Yeah, well, Lindsay, my name is Kate O'Keefe. So I'm obviously Irish by origin. And I don't know if you've heard this one before, but us Irish have this saying that I hope you get to heaven a half an hour before the devil knows you're dead. So that's our toast.
And it's been 5 years. We haven't had that yet. Cheers. Cheers. Thanks so much. Thanks again to Kate for joining me on SaaS Half Full. That was a great conversation. Really appreciate her getting up so early and joining us at 6 a.m. Hopefully you took a few things away and are rethinking how you approach market research in 2026. Really appreciate the listen. And until next time, bottoms up.